Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. Today, we're doing a deep dive on brand building, gain distribution, all the fun things that if you're a small producer, a small craft distillery out there in the universe, which we have 80 distilleries here in the province of BC alone. If you're looking at breaking into the US market or just expanding your growth based around your brand, this is the person you want to talk to. Stephen Myers from Dynamic Beverage Consultants. Him and I hooked up years ago, and I think it must have been Tails, but I think it was... I usually stay away from Australians. Like, I usually don't want to associate with Australians because I come from Australia. So when I came to Canada, everyone was like, oh, did you go to Banff? Did you go to Whistler? I'm like, no, I didn't fly all the way to Canada to go and hang out with a bunch of Australians in the same condo and hang out with people from Queensland. I just don't see the point in it. So when I travel, I tend to like lean away from catching up with Australians. But for some reason, Stephen Myers and a handful of other Australians, it's a picture that comes up every year around Tails time. It's Manny Tateran, Jason Williams, and Stephen Myers, myself at Tails in, oh geez, I don't even want to say the date, 2012, 2013, maybe even earlier than that. I was half the man, literally speaking, that I am today. So welcome, Stephen Myers. How are you, buddy?
Very well, mate. I was actually going to bring up that picture as well. Sort of it pops up sort of on feeds in that sort of, was it late June, early July every year?
Every year. And the crazy thing is, Widge and I, when I was in Singapore in 2019, I actually ended up hanging out with a whole bunch more Australians than I usually do. Because of the time difference, I was able to watch like the State of Origin for the first time in almost 20 years or 15 years at the time. Watch the State of Origin for the first time because like the time difference and everything here in Canada is just such a nightmare to try and be able to pull that off.
Yeah, right. Time difference and exchange rates for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you get you started in the industry, and what have you done to get to the point we're at now?
All right, many moons ago, playing club rugby, and obviously the clubhouse with Gordon Rugby Union in Sydney actually, and managed to get sort of a job behind the stick there, as it were. So that was the first foray into sort of the booze side of hospitality, and had always sort of done things like that. I sort of slipped into the corporate world in Australia and decided that wasn't for me, and then left and moved to Latin America and got in the nonprofit world. Worked for a global nonprofit doing infrastructure development projects in Costa Rica, and then across to Europe again to play a little bit more rugby. And sort of hospitality sort of reared its ugly head again and ended up running an English pub in Luxembourg whilst I sort of swanned around and played rugby for a couple of years.
Nice.
So it was always sort of there. And then returning through Latin America again to do the nonprofit work, I got stuck in Guatemala and was fortunate enough to fall in with John Rexer, who was sort of the founder of Ilegal Mezcal, and worked at his bar again. Sort of got in a bit of a jam, and sort of hospitality saved the day again. It was, I think the line was, "This is the fourth continent I've done this on. I'll work for tips," and it kind of went from there. And then the evolution of that was from the hospitality and sort of the running venue side of things to John wanting to start a mezcal brand, and me deciding that I'd probably saved the world sufficiently, and it was time to get back into the vices. And so I joined him on the Ilegal journey, and then that sort of pulled me from Guatemala in 2009 up to New York, and I've been based in the US ever since.
Well, what year was that? Because I think that's when we connected somehow through Facebook, and then I was at Tails one of my very first times, and you gave me a bottle of Ilegal to bring home here, and then that's when I was like smitten because I'd already fallen in love with mezcal in 2007 at the Agave Spirit Awards, Tequila.net's Agave Spirit Awards in Cancun a couple of years beforehand. And at that time, mezcal was still very unknown, very small brands, very hard to get. And then you also were doing reposado mezcals, which was really, at that time, really difficult to get and really didn't really happen. And so I think that's when I fell in love with Ilegal. And then Ilegal like sort of blew up as well, didn't it, over the last like 2 decades?
Yeah, so I mean, so what it was we were building the brand from Guatemala, and we had this amazing network from sort of Johannesburg to Reykjavik to BC, and I'd reached out to you. I got asked to update a cocktail menu, And they said, can you do it? And I went, yes, of course I can. And then I went, oh, maybe I can't. And we just started getting in touch. And I said, hey, man, this is what I think. Is this a good way of going about it? And you were sort of super helpful. So it was great to bump into you at Tails that time. With Illegal, like a lot of people say you came along at the right time. And sort of any brand that is anything these days sort of stands on the shoulders of giants, right? Ron Cooper had been doing his art and he'd been doing it. So he was sort of first there. And then I do remember walking the mean streets of New York City with Eric Torren when he was at NCO. So it was a combination of timing and sort of the growth of the category and people exploring mezcal, but also sort of making the right time and just putting yourself and your brand and everything sort of to the front. I mean, if I thought it would help, I would go to the opening of an envelope, just to get out there and get amongst it. And sort of New York was a great time for that. So yeah, Illegal became the 20-year overnight success.
Yeah, it's always the 20-year overnight success. So with Dynamic Beverage Consultants, you're helping brands and build brands from the ground up. When you're starting small, what's the first non-negotiable that you sort of pitch to these brands about brand identity before you worry about the sales? Like a lot of these brands come to market with limited packaging, sort of a murky story. What's that first non-negotiable when you sit down with a small brand who wants to expand and grow?
It's got to be transparency and honesty, right? Everybody's got a computer in their hip pocket these days. People got computers in their glasses, right? It's very easy to find out if someone's selling pork pies or not, right? So be honest. I mean, High West I thought was great when they did that. They said that we are the highest distillery in the continental US. We blend, right? We are making our whiskey. We then have to age it, but at the moment we blend, and we're really good at blending. That's why everybody likes it. And they were one of the first brands that sort of came out and said that, because there was a plethora of them that sort of you join the dots and you've gone, smells and it tastes like Indiana. So just be honest. People's bullshit detectors are really good these days, right? And if you lead with that transparency and honesty, people will appreciate you a lot more. So and then that's part of building the connection with the consumers, be it the trade or sort of the off-prem.
Yeah, the distilled in Indiana, bottled in Brooklyn was a big one about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So everybody loves the story of craft. And like I was saying, like there's 80 distilleries here in BC. I've worked with a few of them. It's really tough to push them a little bit further. We've got some really weird rules here in BC when it comes to distilleries, like how much you can sell caps before you get taxed more. So it's a little bit tough to expand. When do you talk to these brands and they're very romantic, because we all get into this business for romance? How do you push them from being romantic about their philosophy and their story and actually push them into, okay, well, you got to execute on that and push them into the next step?
Yeah, you're 1,000% right in that sort of there's the romantics and the visionaries and the mad scientists, and nobody gets into this to run a logistics company or to get on the never-ending sort of finance wheel. So I generally propose it that this is why you started your brand and your concept. If you want to keep doing that and have that to be the majority of your time and your why, right? Because everybody needs that. You've got to have the why. If you want to maintain that as your why, then just think of these things as supplementary to that. Don't think of it as, oh, I have to go and do this now and do that. Just use them as tools so that you can keep doing what you want to do. And then that way you can build the brand and the business simultaneously.
Yeah, business is always that weird thing. I think that's the hospitality industry in general. It's like I used to be so passion driven and the business was like way back in the back of my head. And now it's like, okay, well, no. The business side thing has to be in the front forehead, or you're not going to have anything to do your passion with.
Yeah, and you jump on sort of on LinkedIn or Instagram today, and there's all these guys selling systems packages and procedures packages and stuff like that. And to a very large degree, it is true. If you can get some systems in place, rather than go from spot fire to spot fire, you get to that adage of keeping the main thing. You get to do that, right? So just a little bit of structure, and And sort of, I didn't get it right from the start. Like, I got stuck on all the roundabouts and hit all the dead ends. But then that's what we do at Dynamic Beverage. Is that sort of, there's a great T-shirt of Marco Pierre White with his big hair and a cigarette hanging out his mouth, and across the bottom it's one of his lines, which was, "Fingers are made for burning." Right? There's plenty of chances for you to burn your own fingers, but I think that I've burnt them enough, my fingers enough, so that you, as an emerging brand, don't have to. Because it's common sense born of experience. So if I can sort of truncate that learning timeline, then it's going to put your brand, your business in a position of a better chance of success.
So when we're talking about launching and building that brand, North America, especially the US, we're talking about that in the green room, is a massive area that everybody wants to break into, but it's a super complicated system. And with all the money that's in the system, there's a lot of small brands that I see get a huge amount of attention in Vegas and New York and the big markets, and there's big backers and capitalization behind it. How do you help the smaller guys sort of make that niche? Because Illegal, as we talked about, Illegal, you've helped with Mr. Black. There's been a whole bunch of like smaller brands that you've helped sort of cut through the noise and get out there. How do you usually pitch that to a smaller brand that wants to break into the North American market, especially the US?
Yeah. So sort of, again, as you said, given the nature of the 3-tier system and sort of the type of legislation within states, whether it be sort of a control state, an open state, a franchise state, so there's different types of legislation. You don't have to look at the US as one big homogenous market, because it's not. You have 50 states. You can chop up the big guys, so like Florida, Texas, New York, into smaller markets. So looking at the US, it's probably about 60 markets, right? And different sort of, to get away from the 3-tier system, like different tiers, right? Like you have the big states where there's a lot of sort of pay to play and a lot more competition. And then you have sort of traditional 2nd and 3rd-tier states. You don't have to be everywhere all at once, unless you've got a very, very sort of multiple deep pockets. It, but it's not how you build a brand. It's not how you build a brand either, right? Sort of the best way is, I've found, is narrow and deep. You build the relationships, you get the velocity, you get your rate of sale, you get all the bingo words that your investors want. But it also allows you to build in a more controlled fashion, which is hard, because as a brand owner, you want to say yes, right? You truly do. You want people to like your brand and buy your brand. And if you've not done it before, it's sort of like, oh, well, the more people that are buying it, the better. But then you need to consider, what are the resources, particularly the financial ones, going into being able to say yes. I'm of the school of thought of 10 cases to 10 accounts is much better than 1 case to 100 accounts.
Okay. Yep.
Right? Like if you sell 1 case to 100 accounts, you get really good at selling 1 case. You don't get good at staff training, getting on menus, being a strategic partner, to the point where you can walk into an account and say, look, Steve, we're fine. You're on the chalkboard. You're on the menu. My barberbacks could probably host a masterclass on your product. Go and find someone else to bother. And you go, that is fantastic, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, and we order every fortnight anyway. That's what you want as a business. And that's going back to what we said before about sort of systems and sort of procedures. That's what you want, right? You want to have those brand acolytes and brand ambassadors, whether they be people going out to their own social groups or a business and the team, because you get them on side when they go to other venues. They sort of become an unofficial ambassador as well. So a less is more approach. The US is not going anywhere. You can spend all the money in the world, and that doesn't necessarily, like you said, make it work. So just be diligent about it.
Apart from your knowledge of the industry and like your specialty when it comes to that, when these small brands are looking for those champions, because I feel like the industry, especially post-pandemic, a lot of people in the industry are a little bit more fickle, tend to go for the next craziest thing that they've seen on social media, the next technique, the next product, the next. How do you sort of not just get your foot in the door, but also solidify that brand ambassadorship, whether it, like, not necessarily paid for, but that brand ambassadorship with bars and bartenders and that general consumer? How are you solidifying that once you get your foot in the door?
I mean, so part of the process is you look at it as like, why are the reasons that you love your brand, and it can't be because it's mine, right? It's got to be sort of the provenance or the flavor or what you can do with it, or sort of the branding and the marketing around it. And if you are sort of the embodiment of that, you will find your tribe, as everybody says these days. You'll find the right ambassadors. Now, some of them, I think there's a big difference between ambassador and acolyte, right? You'll find those two, the ones that truly adopt the brand, the ones that get sort of the brand tattoos and the t-shirts, and they walk and talk about it because it just resonates with them. So long as you know that you will find essentially different degrees of ambassadors, and I mean, it's not like you write a little note and sort of put Shawn ambassador type 3, Steve ambassador type 1, but just know that you will find different degrees of engagement from people. That will help you sort of work out sort of how much time and the resources that you allocate to someone like that. And yeah, you'll find the amazing ones, and you'll find the solid ones, and just knowing how to use them within sort of the construct of your business. And that's a bit of trial and error, because the more you do that, the more you learn about your own brand as well. Because you may think that it's going to resonate with a certain demographic or a certain sort of on-premise type of account, and you might be right, and you might be like just a little bit off, right? And so there's that then brings in the test and learn. All right, all the incubators will tell you to test and learn until they're blue in the face, and you can, but you've also got to run a business at the same time too.
So how do you keep control of that personality as you grow? Like, as you said, narrow and was it narrow and deep? Narrow and deep, trying to build that that community within smaller markets, which I can see, like someone from another state goes, "Hey, I really love your product. I saw you on Instagram. I want you to get you in there." And you have to sort of go, "Well, do you want to be another product on the shelf beside a bunch of products just because one person said, we really want your product?" How do you control that brand's personality as it's scaling up?
So a couple things. Every brand or business needs a moat, right? Right. What differentiates you from someone else? What stops other brands from essentially mimicking you and how you do it? And you've got to have that moat, but it's got to be easy to overcome. Right. Sort of the example is, you can say, like, sort of Steve's Aquavit, right? Like, we know who we are, and we're not for everyone, and that's okay. Shawn, you can be you, and we will do our thing, because we are all in, and this is who we are. And you'll find that a lot of people, it's that sort of hybrid, build it and they will come. Yeah, like, you know who we are, we're cool, and if it's not for you, that's okay. You do your thing, and we'll do ours. And that's like a magnet for consumers, ambassadors, people who really want to be part of something. And so, sort of, if you have the team and the brand and all the little things that go into making a great brand, it just makes it really easy for those people that you want to convert to consumers to connect to. Right. So you've got to have product, packaging, and people. They're the 3 Ps. And a lot of brands forget about the people, right? Because you can't do everything yourself. I mean, you start like that when you start your own brand. I mean, I'm spinning up a new brand, and it's like, and it's glorious, right? It's going back to the good old days, and go, oh, got to do this, got to do that, and it's all me at the moment. But then hopefully when I raise some money, I know sort of the right roles to pull in and the right type of people, rather than just sort of still continue to do it all myself and sort of hamstring myself at the same time.
That's a good point. Like, what's the one big mistake when you first sit down with people and they want to expand? Like, you've sat down with so many producers, ones that are small, medium, and maybe just that below big sort of size. What is that one mistake that you see recurring every single time with every single brand before they hit the market that tends to like set the tone in that very first meeting?
Yeah. So 2 things. One, a lot of people, and this is through no fault of their own, because they've probably never done it before, is they hire people like them or another version of them. All right. So when you build a team, I'm of the thought that you bring in someone who's better at what they do than you are. Right? Was it Steve Jobs says, A players hire A players, B players hire C players, C players hire D players, right? So you've really got to try and find the right people from the jump, right? Because your first hire, right, is essentially 50% of your staff. So they got to be great, right? Because if they're not, then it's 50% of the staff are doing 100% of the work, which is why have you got them there? So sort of there's very much that one in sort of building it, and this is much easier said than done, is to be able to step back, right? Because as we said before, like, you can go from fire to fire to fire. That's the nature of starting a brand and a business, and especially in our space, you got a day job and you got a night job, right? You're out there, you're spruiking your brand, you're doing events, you're doing trade shows, you're doing what else, you're waking up in the morning, you're making sure that sort of accounts receivable aren't too far into the red, sort of all the things that go into making a business. And that can be sort of epically time consuming. So sort of making a little bit of time to step back and at least confirm that you're still doing the steps to the strategy that you thought you wanted to do. Sort of whatever Jocko says, sort of step back and delegate, right? Well, it's pretty hard to delegate when it's just you, but you still sort of make time to do that. And sort of keep an eye on the bigger picture, because you can get stuck in the minutia really easily.
Speaking of that, like you were talking about, like hiring the right people and stuff, like I find so many craft distilleries, because I've developed like 5 or 6 spirits here in BC with distilleries, and during the pandemic, I think I did 365 straight daily BC spirit tasting shows, just because I was at home and I had nothing to do. So I ended up spending way too much money on booze, as we all did during the pandemic. But I find so many distilleries get into this echo chamber in their development stage, because they develop a gin or a product. They sit down with a bunch of friends. Those friends are coming over for free drinks. They all say it's fantastic. And then they release it to market. And I've had multiple distilleries in the past, when I've been a restaurateur, like come back like 3-6 months later and go, hey, can we swap out those bottles that we sold you 6 months ago, because we've redeveloped the product to be a little bit better, and like replace them. And when I've gone in to develop spirits, they've been like, yeah, you're really expensive. I'm like, I'm not as expensive as having to replace product that you sold 3 months ago. And so do you find that that's a big thing, especially in the craft movement? Because we've all read the articles about the craft distilleries not doing necessarily products at this level of multinational companies. Do you find that the echo chamber can be a massive hindrance in the development of like the actual liquid?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's no fault of the chemist, the distiller, or their friends and family, right? They want to support them. They want it to do well. That is where you do go to sort of, if you can, some external experts, and sort of not say hand on heart, but sort of get someone who has the palate for it, because you need both, right? You need someone who has the sensory experience to smell and taste and analyze the product. But then you also need the person who is going to go down to the liquor store and buy 24 cans of the seltzer that you just created on a Friday, because they know that they've got something on the Saturday, right? So you've got to listen to both, and a lot of it's just a balance thing. And when you do ask your friends and family, like, tell them to be honest, and which is still a hard thing. Or like a super easy one is get a competitor and do the Pepsi challenge.
I've done that too.
Right? Don't tell them which one it is, right? And let them dissect it that way.
Yeah, I did that with a very now famous local distillery a couple of years ago, because they're having some issues like that. Every batch was very different, and they couldn't tell which was theirs, which was a horrible thing to watch. It was not the most horrible thing to watch. But I always say to a lot of distillers and craft people is like, go to a liquor store. I say this to a lot of younger bartenders too, because like when you start getting a little bit ego about like where you're at and that sort of thing, it's like, go to a regular liquor store, hang out for 45 minutes and watch what people buy. Like, check out.
Ask the full stuff. Have a chat to someone.
Like, why are you buying that instead of this? Like it is something that I think Gordon Ramsay does whenever he does the restaurant, like saving restaurants thing. He walks around town. He's like, what do you think about this restaurant? People will give you the honest answer. And I always say to bartenders, like, if you want to see like how far cocktail culture still has to go, is just go to a regular liquor store and go see what people buy. And you'll see them walking out with Lucky, like the entry level beer here on the island. You'll see them walking out with Mickey's of vodka. Like you'll see people come in and do some of the craft stuff, but it's such a small minutia of the market. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw something the other day, oh, yesterday actually. It was like Tito's has something like 20% of the US vodka
Wow.
market. But by the time you get down to like the 14th brand, it's only like 1.4% or something. Like vodka's got this epically long tail. Like there is no one brand that's taking like 50 or 60% of the market. There's a lot of competition out there. And so that then reinforces the narrow and deep, right? Your brand, you can't be everything to everyone, and nor should you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if you do sort of find your people and find your market, then other people will start to gravitate to it, right? You sort of get that rate of sale, get the volume going, and then broaden the target market. The same way that you geo target sort of physically when you go to a market and you're checking out accounts, or the same way that when you do your online advertising, you don't advertise to America. You advertise to the market, and then just break it down. Tom Baker with Mr. Black was great. He had the line, "What gets measured gets done." Right? Just break it down. Tell my kids, how do you eat an elephant? And they know it now. They go, one bite at a time, Dad. You go, exactly, right? You don't have to take it on all at once. Chop it up, and the thing is, if you get those victories, right? What we do is hard, right? My greatest / worst day was I got 14 no's in a row on a single day trying to sell a product. And I was like, what am I doing this for? And the product was amazing. It was not necessarily the greatest time of the year, but it wasn't even, hey man, do me a solid. He's going, I'll do you a solid when the weather changes. But the thing is, like, if you continually get those no's and everything, it's hard. Like what we do is very difficult as an entrepreneur and a brand builder, right? Because everything sits here, right? And if you're pointing your finger at someone else, then you probably shouldn't be doing it, right? And a lot of those setbacks, yeah, they're hard, and you learn from them. But you've got to build in a couple of wins for yourself as well, even just subconsciously, sort of from how you feel. So one, it's good for the business, but two, it's good for you, who, especially early days, you are the business, right? You can't just keep fighting the good fight forever. And that's what I think a lot of sort of new brand owners and distilleries kind of forget, right? And I mean, you might have the best product in the world, but if everybody says no, then you get disheartened, and then you start looking at product evolutions or package evolutions or whatever it is, right? So build in those wins for you as you go along. Now, obviously don't do too many, otherwise it's just a sort of it's a pat on the back exercise. But yeah, definitely sort of consider that too, because everybody needs a win every now and again.
Yeah, I've been noticing on LinkedIn recently. There's been a couple of, like, you obviously follow pretty much the same amount of people, as well as, like, you see a lot of packaging changes and stuff like that. Has there been like a moment in one of your brand's evolutions where it was a tiny little tweak, whether it be like a bottle, a label, a little story, a little pricing, a little change up, that has completely shifted its trajectory and like blown it up?
So the best one was so Australia, coffee in Australia, right? It's something like 85% of it is hot, right? It's hot. There's no cold brew. There's no Starbucks. Cold brew is a bit of a thing now, but it's hot and mostly with milk, whether it be a cortado or obviously the sort of kind of eponymous flat white at this point, right? So yeah, anyone says flat white, you go, oh, you're from Australia. So sort of hot coffee, usually with a milk of some sort in it these days. But when Mr. Black came to the US, and they had cold brew on the label, and Tom went, I know they're mad for cold brew over here. Now, whether whether they knew how sort of the process works or whether it was just filter coffee that was cold with ice in it. Cold brew is a thing in Australia as opposed to the home market. So when Tom designed the neckers that you hang around the neck of the bottle, there was no need to put Mr. Black on it again, right? Because it was already on the label. We just did a really big cold brew, so you could see it from even further away. So in a country that drinks a lot of cold brew, you might be popping in for a bottle of vodka and a bottle of rosé or tequila or whatever. You're walking past and you drink cold brew twice a day, and you see cold brew on the shelf. It's going to bring you in. So that was a sort of a market specific thing that we did that really helped.
That's very cool. I try and explain to people about Australian coffee culture, and it just, in Victoria we've got good coffee culture, but still in Canada we do too. But like, you talk to Americans about Australian coffee culture and they're just like deadpan. Like, I think what is Starbucks lost $14.7 million or something over 5 years in Australia because they couldn't keep a store open. And I remember when Starbucks first came to Brisbane, it was kitty corner to like this old Greek coffee shop in downtown Brisbane, and it shut within 6 months because everyone still went to the mom and pop Greek spot. Like, it just did not get feet. It was crazy.
So you're a bit of a coffee snob, and you go, of all the people I know, no, I am not.
I like good coffee.
No, I just know a little bit. Yeah.
I want to get into a little bit about exit strategy, because I think in our industry, in hospitality in general, bars, restaurants, cocktail bars, everything, brands, we never think about the exit strategy. In every other industry in the world, if you're a tech company or an oil company or whatever, you basically build a business plan with an exit strategy at the end of the business plan. And it's something that is very mindful and very thought out about, okay, we're going to build this and we'll sell it off to a conglomerate. We'll sell it off piece by piece. How do you just discuss exit strategy with people and in a way that doesn't sort of take away that passion side of things? So I think it's almost an affront to people who are really passionate about their brands. Like, how fucking dare you? How dare you talk about me leaving my company? It's an affront to a lot of passionate people. How do you broach that subject and build on it?
Yeah, so you don't break the heart. So I think I use as a really great reference point Lisa Laird and what Laird's have done. And what are they up to? 12, 13 generations or something? And speaking to a friend who was building a brand, and I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to build a multi-generational business. I went, outstanding. That is really going to color what we do now. Again, speaking to a girl who sort of had brought a family recipe to life. And there was a lot of external voices telling her, do this, do this, do that. And I managed to sort of sit down with her by herself. And I said, look, you need to put your hand on your heart and say what you want this to be. And you just got to be honest. And like some people build it for the exit, right? God, I hate bringing them up because everybody goes, oh, well, what about Casamigos? And you know what? The three amigos, Mike, Randy, and George, they knew exactly what they were doing. And they did a lot of legwork before it happened. And so when that super deal closed, and it closed so quickly because they had prepared for that eventuality. So it really is, what do you want? Do you want to exit? Do you want to do a multi-generational business? Or do you want to basically run a business that is functioning, and you can like have a great distillery, great tasting room, sort of do some D2C type stuff, and have a functioning business that lets you live the life that you want. And when you want to, because they never retire, when you want to semi-retire or give the option for your kids to take it over, there is that. Because a lot of people think, oh, my only exit is the acquisition sale. And I mean, you look at the number of liquor brands out there relative to the number of acquisitions, the ratio is not skewed for success, right? The actual sort of building and growing a brand and getting to that tipping point to get investment to then potentially be acquired, because you've got to fit with the global portfolio, or who knows, maybe there is someone new in the C-suite that wants to take sort of the company in a different direction, right? So the odds are truly stacked against you. So look at it from it's not a career, it's a calling. Like, what do you want to do? And then you develop your business plan and sort of your course of actions around that.
So you work backwards from where you want to end up.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of people think, oh, I'll do this and then this will happen. Well, again, what I said was this is common sense born of experience, right? And logically, everyone's doing it right. They just don't know all the steps to hit. Right? It's not like start a brand, sell some bottles, someone gives you a check. Right? It'd be nice if it was, but it's just not. And so, yeah, you really need to consider what you want to do, because, like we said, it's 2 jobs. It's potentially all consuming. Don't get me wrong; it's fantastic, and I wouldn't have been doing it for a quarter of a century if it wasn't. But yeah, you've got to have a pretty good why.
And do you find, like, I see acquisitions these days, and there's been a number of acquisitions over the last 5 years, but over the last 15, like, there's been I'm not even going to mention it because I don't want to get in trouble by the big brands, but there's been big brand acquisitions that you, at the time, you go, well, how much did you pay and why did you pay that? And then within 3 to 5 years, you don't even see that brand on the shelves anymore. The brand is dissolved and been sold off. And you're like, okay, well, this big brand came in, gave you a check, realized that without that why and those people behind it, that it doesn't really exist anymore. So acquisition doesn't always necessarily lead to legacy.
It does not. That is why there is acquisitions, because a lot of these guys, and we all know the big strategics we're talking about, they are great from 50,000 9-liter cases and up. They can't create them. I mean, they can bring on additional SKUs, but it's not that they don't try, but they're not designed for that. They are designed to be global multinational businesses. And so you have to get yourself to them. And it's a little bit of everything. It might be a real estate play. It might be to sort of get facilities, to get a better distribution network. I mean, there's a whole raft of reasons as to why you're acquired, not just because you've got a smoking hot brand with awesome gear, right? Sort of, you've also got to look at it from the acquirer's perspective. Like, they're not just going to bring you in and go, right, Shawn, your brand is the second coming. We are taking you around the world, and this is what right? Because, I mean, Bacardi, they're private, right? Diageo, they're on the exchequer. Like, there's all these other factors that are governing decision making that, as a small brand, you may not necessarily be aware of because you're so busy running your business, as you well should be.
And we've seen it over the last 6 months, like big distilleries or new distilleries that have been reopened, especially in Scotland, being now like, okay, we're not making whiskey anymore. I think last week George Dickel was announced that George Dickel is stopping production right now, and that's if Diageo is like covering their bases in every single place. But I think as exit strategy, going back to the exit strategy, like, you think if you sell a big brand off, a la Casamigos, that you're going to have this massive legacy going forward, and it doesn't always play out that way.
Yeah, and so what you've got to consider is that, sort of, when you sell it, and people forget that it's the nature of selling things, it's not yours anymore, right? If you can, the day that you sell it, if you can sit there and say, I left this in the best position I could, given my experience, given my capabilities, given sort of the roller coaster of the distribution network and sort of global economies, and all that jazz. If you can say, I did it to the best I could, and this was the deal, and now it's theirs. It's not easy, right? And it doesn't mean sort of the heartstrings aren't tugged in it, and it certainly doesn't mean that everybody asks. Yeah, you've just got to. That is the nature of business, right? And it's funny, like in all the movies where the bad guy gets plugged, and he goes, "It's just business." And the plugger says it's never just business, and it's not, right? Because I said, we're the distillers, we're the romantics, we're the brand builders and the visionaries. But this is also just a thing.
So, what's your plan for the next 6 months?
Survive Q4. As you guys know, sort of Q4 is the madness slash the quickening, right? It's the most boost sales through the whole year. Big guys are trying to hit numbers. Small guys are trying to make numbers. They work out plans for next year. Venues, especially this, I mean, ever since COVID, right? Q4 is where venues in the trade have always had the ability to catch up, but the last few years they really got to. So like, no one's taking flyers on new products unless it's amazing. So I work with a couple of really cool little brands, and we're doing sort of Q4 plans and execution and how we are going to, because I like concentric circles, right? Your previous step has to reinforce what you're doing now, and that has to reinforce the next one, right? Nothing else, and you grow concentric circles, right? You don't grow in a straight line. You've got to be better at everything you do at each level, right? Otherwise, sort of the house of cards starts to fall down. So, working on a few things like that, and as I mentioned, I got a new brand in the pipes too. It's a really big white space. It will be a one of one thus far. So I've got to try and capture that first mover advantage. So I've got if anyone's interested, hit me up. I got a friends and family deck. It will be cool. It will be very cool. It's going to be sort of all the brands and all the continents that I've done this on, sort of the culmination of that, so that hopefully instead of 3 steps forward, 1 step back, it's going to be like 8 or 9 steps forward and 1 step back. Got some good supplier partners already. It'll be a fun one, and it tastes good.
So just before we go into our deep podcast questions, which I asked every guest before the end of the show, just because it just dawned on me when talking about Q4 and budgets and stuff like that, with a lot of big brands seeing and when it comes to big brands, they see a 2% decline, and the red lights start flashing, alarms go off, and that sort of thing. With the bigger brands, sort of not losing market share, but losing a little bit of sales, and budgets like drying up. I'm seeing it here in Canada as well. Budgets sort of drying up. Do you see that as an opportunity for the smaller brands to sort of like get their foot in the door when you go into a bar and this bar may have been making bank off brand kickbacks? All of a sudden, those brand kickbacks have like either completely dissolved or shrunk, and now they've got an opportunity to like get your foot in the door for these bars and these small brands. Are you seeing that happening in this last 18 months, that you've sort of heard the rumblings of like lower sales?
More and more so. Yeah, I mean, sort of there is that sort of restraint from the bigger guys. Certainly not the largesse that we saw back in the day. And so that is happening, and that then brings, again, back to that narrow and deep, right? Find your target accounts. Because a lot of the big guys, they look at cities in regards to hundreds of accounts, whereas when you're starting, you're looking at tens of accounts. If you can pick them up and you explain, look, I'm small, I'm new, this is the support I can give, but I will be that new brand strategic partner for you, and sort of do the best you can there. And then the bigger guys, they're also looking against, obviously, sort of the Delta 9 and the CBD and the THC, and then the non-alc and the low ABV. They're looking at a much more complicated, fast-moving landscape than Steve and Shawn's gin, right? And Steve and Shawn don't have to say, "Oh, we're great in a martini," because that's what every gin does, right? You've got to find your USP, right, and work on that one too. So opportunity is definitely there, but just know that it's a really easy default for brands and for bars, liquor stores, and distributors to say, it's Q4, really sorry. And also know that sort of incentives are really big from the big guys then, right? Because if they don't spend the money, they don't get it. I mean, granted, budget should be done, but you still got to spend your money, otherwise you don't get it, right? So just know that it's a hard hill to climb, but sort of if you're very deliberate and methodical about it, that's the best way to do it, because then it puts you in really good standing for the guys that you work with for next year, right? You come back and you say, thanks for being awesome in Q4. I know it's not easy. Would love to do even more things with you this year.
That's
Work on it that way.
so.
Right? It's not Q4 in isolation.
Time for the 5 deep podcast questions.
Do
Always
it.
throws a lot of people out. But what is one lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry that forward in your life? Personal or business?
Personal or business? I mean, it's kind of both, right? Given what we do. Everybody's an entrepreneur these days, but it is not for everyone. It's hard. It is really hard. It is. It's long hours. It's lonely. I notice it now, as well as living in New York. Sort of, the busiest city in the world can be achingly lonely. And so, when you're starting your own business or your own brand, you will, and especially in this business, you will have lots of acquaintances, like a lot. And if you're very good at what you do, you're a couple of degrees of separation from tens of thousands of people. But you don't have a lot of friends. And that's not because people aren't friendly. It's like, we don't have time, right? Especially now, right? I got to, like, when I go to New York, so I live in Philadelphia, I'll get the last thing smoking home. So I'm back home to do breakfast and stuff with my kids each time I go up. So it's just a day trip. Sort of, you have that great surface level relationship, but it can be terribly lonely, and that's something that you got to face up to, right? It's hard, sort of emotionally, spiritually, physically. I mean, you've seen it too. Sort of, there was a bunch of us sort of back in the day who were great at that brand ambassador type thing, but physically they just couldn't do it. Like, hey man, you gotta dip. This is not for you. So you gotta be honest. You gotta be honest with yourself. So that's the big one that I've learned.
If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why?
Ooh. I could put my Aussie accent on and swear. It's always personal, right? Too often people say, "Oh, it's just business." It's like, we're not put on this earth to do business, right? The world would be a better place if you put yourself in their shoes a little bit, and not necessarily treat them that way, but like, if we understood more of not even our opponent, the person that we work with, do business with, sort of have the contract negotiations with, if we understood them a little bit more, because everyone's going through something, whether we know it or they admit it, and that subconsciously colors a lot of people's thinkings. And I mean, doesn't mean be a pushover and be easy, but yeah, I think that's it.
Looking back on your journey, what is something you wish you had understood earlier in life?
I always kind of said yes to everything. There's a line: how you do anything is how you do everything. Right? I know that's a big mantra with sort of elite sporting teams and stuff like that now, really. So if you walk past something that is not of the standard that it should be, then that starts to affect everything you do. So do everything well, right? It saves you from doing it a second time. It builds an internal standard, right? And that's how you treat people. It's how you treat yourself, right? Like, we rock and rolled very well for a long time. Did that mean treating ourselves particularly well? No, but we were very good at it. So now, like, at 47, I can't act like I was when I was 25. So know that, right? So how you do anything is how you do everything.
How you define success, and has your definition of it changed over time?
That's a good one. Well, I think that's the same for everybody. Like, the older you get, the way you live, what you're doing, you should redefine success all the time. I think, there you go. That's the definition of success: knowing that you have to redefine what your success is. Right? Being a dad and a husband is very different to a guy who was bouncing through Whiskey Live Paris and Moscow Bar Show and Sydney Bar Show and 42 Below World Class and like all those amazing things, and know that sort of you as your business, as your brand, but personally you evolve as well, and just try and bring all the learnings with you. Right. Again, it's that compound interest thing, right? Take everything you've learned, whether it be good, bad, indifferent, learn from your mistakes.
What do you hope your legacy will be, and what steps are you taking to build it?
I don't know if I need a legacy, right? I think like rather than go, oh, he did that or that was his brand, I think my engagement with people and sort of how I worked with them and treated them and supported them, almost like legacy on a subconscious level, and just helping people be better people, right? Because if you are a better person, then you are a better brand owner and businessman and boss and leader. I don't need sort of an archive of technical skills or medals or whatever that I've left the world. Not that I'm leaving the world in a better place, but yeah, small impacts on things like that. Like I've noticed, and very deliberate, the interplay between generations, from my grandfather through my father through myself and to my son, and what sort of it's not what I hope him to be, but sort of what I want to give him in regards to sort of him as a person. And that's sort of, it's dramatically different, like from me to my father and where he grew up and sort of how he was raised, and sort of just putting the world in a better place, I guess, because we could certainly use it right about now. And I'm sure every generation has said that, but if we all act like that, then maybe it will get to be a better place.
Well, dude, thank you so much for everything today. Like, that was awesome. Like, I've got a whiteboard right over here, and I've got everybody that I want to have on the show over time. So every time I have an idea or I see a post on LinkedIn, I'll throw it up and put it in my schedule. And I got another whiteboard over here with all my dates and when I'm going to schedule everything up. So I appreciate it. And I hope that once I snip this up and release it, that a lot of smaller brands get a ton of value out of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It was really, really good. I do remember when I said, "Oh, you got any questions to send me?" And you went, "No, I don't do it like that." I was like, "Oh, all right." So it's good. I actually really enjoyed the format too. So thanks.
Well, thank you so much, man. Well, I'll let you know when this gets released in a couple of weeks, and